A lot of drivers tend to have the ostrich mentality when they bury their heads in the sand so they can't see a problem and they ignore a problem, just hoping it's going to go away. But the reality is that often we ignore problems that we really shouldn't. And rather than go away, they escalate into bigger problems. So in this video, we're going to look at 6 things that drivers shouldn't ignore, but they often do. So the first thing to look out for, is more to sniff out for, it's smells. So when you're driving the car, if you notice unusual smells, make sure it's not your passenger's feet, because that can cause all sorts of misunderstandings and problems if you point that out to them. But if you notice a smell, a burning smell, a fuel smell, an oil smell, they're all indicators that there is something wrong. There is a potential problem there in the car. If you've recently changed the oil or topped the oil up, it may just be that some of the oil has spilt outside of the engine and it's just starting to burn off. You're getting the aromas of burning oil coming into the cabin. But you should certainly check out these smells because they can often indicate there is a problem. It's just an encouragement really to have a look around the engine bay of the car and just see if there are any leaks or any other problems that are forming that you may not have noticed. So the next thing to watch out for is involving our ears. We need to listen out for this one. It's noises from the car. So the noises that would cause concern vary from car to car. If you've got an older car, an off-road car, it may make a lot of clunking noises that would be extremely worrying if you drove a high-performance sports car. So get used to the baseline of noises coming from your car. Now, the things you should be listening out for are rattles and whines coming from the engine, and also clunks coming from the suspension when you steer or when the car goes over uneven terrain. These can all indicate there is some kind of problem in the car. So often whines are connected to the belts or the tensioners in the engine, and that can indicate that maybe that is on its way out, and that can lead to a very, very expensive repair if it's ignored. The modern engine has lots of other little systems and things going on inside it, so if these are starting to rattle, it may just be down to a loose bolt or a loose screw somewhere causing a vibration. But you should certainly investigate these problems just to make sure you've not got a big problem looming in the background that's going to come back and bite you with a really expensive repair bill. So the third thing to keep an eye out for is, as you drive the car, has it become vague? Has it started to wander? Is the steering not quite as responsive? Is maybe the braking a problem? Are the brakes engaging too slowly, or are they not releasing quickly enough? All these little indicators can show that there is something potentially wrong. And with suspension, it's often just down to rubber bushings. It's not a particularly expensive repair, but those vibrations that you're getting through the car can lead to other problems in other areas. In some cases, I've had cars where there's been serious amounts of deterioration on the struts of the suspension due to corrosion, and it's actually led to major deformation. And I've just noticed this wandering sensation, and when I took it into the garage, they inspected it and they told me the car was actually dangerous to drive. The whole member that the suspension sat on was just sitting on a thread of metal, and it was already starting to wobble around and move. So it's a good job that I got something done about that problem sooner rather than later, because driving along having a complete failure of that suspension component could have led to a very serious accident. The fourth thing to look out for is warning lights. Now, often people get annoyed that there's a little light on the dashboard, but that light is not on the blink, is not doing that blinking thing for the sake of it. It's trying to tell you that you've got a serious problem with one of the systems in the car. So some of these warning lights are less serious than others. They may just indicate that a service item is due or you need to pay attention soon to something, but others can mean there's something catastrophically wrong with the engine. So particularly the engine check light is always worth investigating why these lights have flashed up on the dashboard. If you've got a diagnostic tool that you can plug into the OBD2 port, you can download the error codes and get a feel for what is failing in the car. It's often something quite minor. It may just be a sensor in the car or a connection that started to break. So this in itself is quite a minor problem to fix. But if the ECU, the car's computer, is getting wrong information, it can lead to rough running conditions, which can damage other components. For example, if the engine was running rich, it'd be dumping unburnt fuel into the catalyst, and that will degrade the catalyst, and that's a very expensive replacement cost. So keep an eye out for these warning lights. They're not just there for the sake of it. They're not a decoration. They do generally indicate that there is something you as a driver need to pay attention to with the car. And if a light goes out, it doesn't always mean the problem has gone away. It may just be the early start of a problem that needs to be investigated. So don't ignore lights that have come on and gone off. I think we all tend to hope for the best. We don't want to have expensive repair bills, but by avoiding that early diagnosis, it can lead to much larger repair bills further down the line. So the fifth sign to look out for, and it's certainly something you need to always be aware of, is leaks. So make a point of just checking underneath the car to see if there's any fresh leaks forming. So you may notice coolant, it may be oil, it may be brake fluid or some other substance, but if stuff is coming out of the engine, that is not a good situation to be in. So leaks often just mean you need to replace a seal, maybe a gasket has gone and has started to fail. But once these levels of these fluids start to drop, you start to have other problems forming. So a drop of oil will obviously affect the lubrication of the engine. A drop of coolant can affect the cooling of the engine, leading to serious overheating problems. A loss of brake fluid can actually make braking rather challenging because it kind of needs the brake fluid in order to translate your pedal pressure into pressure at the pads. So the sixth and final thing to look out for, it's quite a significant thing, this is smoke. If you can detect smoke, there is probably something burning or smouldering somewhere in the engine. Now it can be the rubber belts rubbing, causing friction, building up heat, and they can give off a smoky smell. It could just be spilt oil somewhere in the engine, particularly if oil drips onto the exhaust. That can create smoke, and it's certainly something you need to look out for because smoke often indicates the potential for fire, and that's a very serious problem in your car engine. So don't ignore smoke. You may also get smoke coming from the tyres, the wheel bearings, the brake area, somewhere along that side. That can be caused due to excessive friction. If the pads are maybe binding on, or if the bearings are on their way out, this buildup of heat can lead to smoking and smouldering, and that's going to eventually deform the metal components, leading to a very, very expensive repair. Also, the exhaust, if you notice different coloured smoke coming out of the exhaust, and I've done another video dealing specifically with the different colours of smoke from an exhaust, that can indicate you have other problems going on inside the engine that you really do need to jump on quickly and investigate to avoid that escalating into a larger problem. So that's just very quickly an overview of 6 things that you should be looking out for as a driver. So I hope this video has just given you a good overview of these 6 things to look out for when you're driving the car, and hopefully it'll avoid those expensive run-on costs that you get where things have escalated, problems have become much larger than they would have been if you just nipped them in the bud at the start of the problem. So thanks for watching. Please boot the like button, that really does help us to get out there. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so, because we'd love you to stay tuned, and I've lined these videos up for you that you should find really interesting. Thanks for watching. See you in these next videos.